Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren, and today we're going to finish up my super duper long November wrap up. All right, y'all. So we are going to be jumping into part 2 of the wrap up after we finish with the advent calendars. There will be timestamps down below. So yeah, I'll see you in a minute. All right, y'all. So let's get to it. Let's open up day 5 of our countdown to the holidays. So first, let's start Chaiwala. Black chai. Perfect. My favorite. Excited to try that one. Next up, we have the SteepingTime calendar. Day 5. Where are you? There you are. Let's see what we have. Oh, blue cornflowers. Oh, it smells like a black tea. And I see some silver needles. So I think that this is probably Brigadoon from Adagio. Let's take a look. It is Brigadoon from Adagio. There you go. Next up, we will do the Tea Girl. Day 5. Ooh, we have cinnamon apple. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Smells delightful. And let's see where we are. Day 5. Oh, there's no lady. Let's see. One life has value so long as one attributes value to the life of others by means of love, friendship, and compassion. Simone de Beauvoir. Oh, ginger pear tea? That sounds great. And since it is an odd day, we're doing tea thoughts today. So that is we did day 2. So we need day 3. Feels like, a truffle, a tea ball. What will it be? Oh, yay, a tea ball. Let's see what we have today. Day 3. This white tea ball is from Kura Tea. It's called Electro Flower Candy, and it's an apt name for this floral and fragrant tea. This 7-gram tea ball is great for tea on the go in Gong Fu style or in a mug. Check out the next page for a visual brewing guide. Perfect. All right, y'all. So those are our day 5 teas. Next up was White Rage, the unspoken truth of our racial divide. This is a must read. If you consider yourself liberal, leftist, an ally, a co-conspirator, you need to read White Rage. It's a history of white rage in America. Not just current, like it's not modern, like it goes through the history of America and all of the different types of white rage and how they have revealed themselves throughout history in this country. And it was nonstop. It was fact, but in a very consumable, like, I couldn't stop listening to this book. And it's all things that, like, I know, but to hear it just all laid out, like, bam, 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 it's just like, man, the progress, it just doesn't exist. We all like to think that we are so much further along than we actually are, but we really should be further along than we actually are. But the white rage has kept Black people and other people of color from advancing in this country.
just period, end of story. Like, and people like hold up the our history and be like, well, we desegregated and all that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, but you tied that all up in the courts for decades. Decades. These schools continue to be segregated for decades because states like Georgia continue to circumvent the laws. It was infuriating to listen to. It was, if you need to keep the fire burning in your belly for breaking down the systems of white supremacy that continue to exist and exert oppression on people in this country, you need to listen to this. And you need to get out there and start organizing and volunteering and mobilizing people into action and make real change, because it permeates every system that still exists today, and we need to be active participants in dismantling it. Like, it's not going to happen on its own. We need to be the voices, and it's so much more than the social media sharing on social media. Like, we need to be out in our communities and advocating and listening to people who have been doing this for generations, and they know how to keep moving that needle forward, and we need to help them do that, and we need to care, and we need to not let our complacency and our comfort get in the way of doing what needs to be done to do the work. So if you are struggling with where you need to get started, listen to this book. Listen to what resonates with you. What area is it? Is it education? Is it equality in the workplace? Is it voting rights? What is the thing that you feel you can dive your energy into? Because we can't fix all of the problems, right? Just ourselves. We need to learn how to focus our energy on a path. And so listening to this book and choosing a path will help you figure out where you would be most effective in your community. Whether that be getting involved with your school board, or getting involved with local politics, or getting involved with getting folks registered to vote and providing rides to the polling places. Like, figure out what your passion is and do the work. All right. Let's move on. The next thing I read was Mouse, part one and part two. For, again, this is another iconic graphic novel. I've always heard about it, and I've always thought it sounded really fascinating. For those of you that don't know, this is about the author's father who survived the concentration camps during Nazi Germany, and what that was like for both of his parents, actually, because they both were in the concentration camps, and the effects that had long term. There are trigger warnings for suicide, death, anti-Semitism. It's a very, very heavy book. But I feel like it's such an important read, and it's very accessible, and the complicated aftermath of being a child who grew up with parents who survived the atrocities that happened during the Nazi regime, and how complicated relationships with your parents is just a universal thing, and it hurts. It just hurts to have a complicated relationship and not to understand why it has to be that way. It was a very moving book for many reasons, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. I gave it 5 stars. It's an important book, especially in the graphic novel genre. Next up is The Arbornaut, A Life Discovering the Eighth Continent and the Trees Above Us. This was a memoir by Meg Lohman, who is an arbornaut, a scientist who studies trees. I loved this book. I got this as an ARC from the publisher through NetGalley. And this is just both memoir and history of trees. So Meg Lowman rose to the top of her field in a time where that just women didn't really exist in the science field, in the STEM field, in the environmental sciences field. And she rose to the top, and what that was like for her, and how she has continued to keep her passion alive, and where how her career has developed over time from being someone who was in the trees in Africa and Australia and studying the canopies and discovering new insects and how trees work, and how developing new ways to study those trees, and to now working on preservation of those trees, and where we as common citizens can help with that, how we can take an interest in protecting our trees, because it's so important. It's the most important thing really on this planet that cleans our air. Like it's the most effective thing, and it's an incredibly important resource that we need to take an interest in. She gives some really practical suggestions at the end of the book, which I made a whole list of things to check out after reading it. I started following her on social media. I found her very inspiring as someone who would love to see her child eventually end up in STEM. I love seeing these stories and reading about these amazing women who are paving the way for people like my kiddo and this new generation coming forward to hopefully have a clearer path to achieving greatness within the science fields. A great read. If I 5 stars. The next thing I read was Honor Girl, which was a graphic memoir about a young teenager at camp. She used to go to this Christian camp in the South, and her realization that she is bisexual. It was never really clear whether or not she was bi or coming out as a lesbian, or, what exactly was going on, but there is a sapphic relationship going on here. I got the impression that the author was bi, which was a great representation to see, even if it was not clearly defined in that way. I found it an enjoyable read. It's a camp setting, it's an all girls camp, and just what it was like for her that summer when she was discovering this factor about herself and kind of starting to come out to the people around her. Gave it 4 stars. Next up is Infused Adventures in Tea. Now, this is a book by Henrietta Lovell, who owns the Rare Tea Company. I started this book last year. I got maybe like a third of the way through, I think, but then all of the uprisings started right around the time that I started reading this, and this just completely took a backseat to what I wanted to be listening to and learning about and giving my energy to. So it was a pleasure to jump back into this. It's the audiobook in particular is such a soothing listen. It's all about just Henrietta's experience in tea, in becoming the tea lady and traveling all over the world, curating tea from farms that put time and care into ensuring that they produce high quality tea. I enjoyed reading about her experience in curating tea and developing tea for restaurants, and her whole ideology behind tea and why it's important, and how anyone can develop a love of tea. And it definitely is a great read for any tea lover. If you It'll just ignite your passion for teas, for tea leaf, encourage you to pause and enjoy, and let tea be the beautiful cup that it is, and let it speak for itself, and take the time to enjoy it. It was a lovely, soothing read. Gave it 4 stars. Next up is Lead from the Outside: How to Build Your Future and Make Real Change by Stacey Abrams. This book was great. I haven't listened to anything from Stacey Abrams before. I enjoyed it. Was narrated by her, so I enjoyed hearing her voice. I really am impressed with just her overall as a human and all that she has accomplished. I have supported her organization, Fair Fight Action, before. I too am very passionate about voting rights and getting voters out there. As I mentioned before with White Rage, finding your passion and following that path, like that is where my passion has always been. And that is where I have allocated a lot of my time and energy the last 18 months is through voting, getting people out to vote, encouraging people to vote, making sure people are registered to vote. Talking about how important it is to vote, donating money to organizations that facilitate fair voting. And so I really enjoyed listening to this book because she was talking, it felt like she was talking directly to something that I care very deeply about. And I so look forward to the day that I can give my vote to Stacey Abrams. And I look forward to reading more from her. She's awesome. If you're not familiar with Stacey Abrams, definitely give her a Google and see all the amazing things that she's doing. She's awesome. Next up is An Age of License, which is a travel log by Lucy Kinsley. This is the first Lucy Kinsley graphic novel that I have read. I also have French Milk, which I have started, but I have not finished yet, which comes before An Age of License. So if you're going to read in order, like you should read French Milk first. But I didn't, so whatever, it's fine. This is her story of kind of what happens after French Milk, and she is a graphic novel artist, and also likes to travel and create graphic novels about her travels and memoir-esque graphic novels. And so this is her travel log for when she went overseas to promote French Milk at a graphic novel conference or cartoonist, like which featured like graphic novel artists, cartoonists, comic artists, and then a whirlwind love affair and traveling all throughout Europe to see friends and spend time with her mother who was also traveling. And so at some point during her journey, she hears the phrase "an age of license," in which kind of encompasses like where she is in her life at that moment, where she has the license to travel and figure out who she is as a person. So that was the running theme throughout the entire graphic novel. I enjoyed her art style, and it was a nice light read, fairly quick. I gave this 3 stars, and I'll definitely be checking out her other graphic novels. I'm curious to see her other work. So next up is Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot by Mickey Kendall. There's been a lot of buzz around this one, and there should be. If you need a primer on intersectional feminism, this is the book for you. We really need to ensure that all of our movements are intersectional, and this breaks it down very easily into each category of where intersectionality has failed to take into account anyone other than cis white women in all aspects of feminism, and also the fact that a lot of issues that are feminist issues are not categorized as feminist issues. And she does a great job of walking you through all of that. This is a great book. This is another one where I wish I had a physical copy so that I could be annotating along with it, because I've done that a few times with a lot of the books that I've read the last year, specifically center around social justice issues. I find that listening to the audiobook and annotating along with it really helps me retain the information. I can make notes about things that I find really are in things that I want to share with others. So yeah, I definitely think I'll be purchasing either an e-copy or a hard copy so that I can listen to this again and take notes when I'm listening. Definitely recommend, 5 stars. If you are a feminist, you should read this book. And then last, I read Transgender History by Susan Stryker. And this is just what it says. It's transgender history. It's another great, I feel like a lot of the books that I've read this month are like primers. They're overviews of the general topic. It makes you curious enough to dive deeper into certain aspects of those overviews. And this was no exception. I found this really interesting. A lot of LGBTQ history is wrapped up in this, and how transgender folks are constantly cut out. Just they are oppressed within an oppressed group. And it's heartbreaking, it's frustrating, it's something we all need to be aware of, and it's something we should all be advocating towards inclusion and intersectionality, and ensuring that our feminism and our LGBTQ advocacy is including trans voices, and not only trans voices, but Black trans voices. They, these voices should be leading the path forward. Like, at the end of the day, like, cis white people can constantly co-opt these spaces, and we need to be listening to other voices than our own. Period. End of story. And this book is just another iteration of listen to other voices other than cis white people. Like I don't know how many times it needs to be said before people start listening, but stop listening to just cis white voices. Like, we need to be listening to other voices, and we need to be centering them and letting them take the lead. If you are interested in transgender history, this is a great place to start. As I continue to delve further into trans history and those who have played a role in moving transgender rights forward, I'll be definitely be sharing those as I get to them. But if you have any recommendations, please leave them down below. One of my goals for 2022 is to be reading more by trans authors. It's definitely something that I just haven't prioritized or really thought about. And again, that's part of the problem. So I am definitely making a list of things that I want to get to next year. So yeah, I'm always looking for recommendations. So yeah, those were the books that I read in November for Nonfiction November. There were quite a few. 18, 19, 20 books. So did pretty good. Hoping to finish out December in a, not really sure what I'm going to be reading in December. I think I'm probably going to be switching back over to some more mysteries. I have quite a few things that I want to get to. And as much as I love nonfiction, because I love nonfiction, I think I'm ready for a little not reality for a little bit. It's been a lot. And with the holiday season here, it's like I'm ready for a little bit of a mental headspace break. But yeah, thanks for joining me. I know this was a long one. If you participated in Nonfiction November, leave me some of your favorites down below. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.